Hi, political geography class. Here's some guidance that will hopefully help you with the geography of elections assignment. I'm going to mainly talk about how you can make use of the Excel sheet file, particularly the tally figures. Just to remind you, all the details, information you need for this assignment has been available on the Moodle page for the last few weeks. At the top of this page, you'll see there's a workspace created for you there. So for this assignment, I'm asking you to make use of Cadmus, this Cadmus working environment link that's provided for this assignment. So all your work for this assignment should be done through Cadmus. So any typing, any calculations, any drafts, etc., etc. Cadmus, working through Cadmus should be the same as, you should find it more or less the same as working with a regular Word document. So it shouldn't be too difficult. There is a how to use Cadmus video available there. But yeah, there should be no issues really in terms of typing. You should be able to cut and paste graphs into Cadmus if you've worked on graphs and so on. What Cadmus, the reason why I'm working with Cadmus, getting you to use Cadmus this year, this semester, is it does allow me to keep an eye on how you are progressing with the work for this assignment. So as of now, I can already see that 12 of the class have actually clicked on this link already, which means that 29 of you haven't yet clicked on this link. So seriously, guys, by the time you've finished listening to this, you really should be trying to get to grips with the Cadmus working space. As I said, there's a help guide on how to make use of Cadmus available there through one of the links, and a more specific video might be made available to you on how to make use of Cadmus for this assignment in the next few days. The other document here is the Geography of Elections assignment details document. That gives you the 4 questions you've been asked to think about for this assignment. Now there's 4 questions. You have a choice of 2 out of these 4 questions. So pick the 2 you want to do. You've only to do 2 out of 4. Most of the assignment details document gives you information on, background information on the area you're looking at and the politics of the area and the politicians. So it's an imaginary election, an imaginary constituency. The constituency is called Maynooth University. But Maynooth University here is meant to represent a big county where you've got some working class urban areas, some middle class urban areas, some rural areas, some small towns, some bigger towns, etc. So it's meant to represent a pretty large county with a mix of urban areas and rural areas. So you can actually tease out, there's scope to tease out whether there is socioeconomic influences on voting patterns evident in the data. Are Fianna Fáil doing better in rural areas than urban areas? Are Sinn Féin doing better in urban working class areas, etc.? And you can also do that for voter turnout as well. So yeah, the assignment details, the details in the assignment guidelines they're offering you information that you should be taking account of when you're working through your answers. The next document there is the data file itself. It includes the tally figures. This data file, you know what, I'll skip over this because this is what I'm going to mainly talk about in this presentation. So basically what I will say is, if you want to get a good mark for this answer, you need to be able to make use of that data file, particularly the tally figures. And you need to try to do some analysis. Now, when I say analysis, I'm not talking about high-powered analysis, but what I'm hoping that you will be able to do is you'll be able to do some basic calculations through Excel, adding up, calculating percentages, and maybe even drawing up a graph. And the rest of this presentation will help you in terms of giving advice on how to do that if you haven't made use of Excel before. The next document tells you which candidates you've been assigned if you want to do question 1. If you don't want to do question 1, then you don't need to worry about that. Question 1 is basically looking for evidence of the friends and neighbours effect, which we've talked about in class, of course. Question 2 tells you what party you've been assigned to if you want to do question 2. And question 2 is looking at party campaigning, party candidate selection approaches. Did they do the right thing in this constituency? Did they not? What did they do right? What did they do wrong? Question 3, what area have been assigned for question 3? Question 3 is basically a very straightforward question asking you to more or less explain the political landscape in the specific area that you've been assigned. So who are the most popular candidates? Why might certain candidates be more popular than others? Which parties are the most popular? Why are certain parties more popular than others? What's the voter turnout level in this area? What's the spoil vote level in this area? Is this particularly high or low, and why? If so, why? Question 4 is a debate style question. So you can choose whichever option. There's about 5 or 6 options in question 4. For this one, you can pick whichever option you want, but you need, in writing your answer for question 4, you need to take, again, as with the other 3 questions, you need to take account of information provided in the assignment guidelines, but you also need to make use of the data file as well to do a bit of analysis and try and draw in elements of that analysis into your answer. The last document there, and all these documents I should answer, they're also available through the Cadmus working link. The last document is the assignment marking rubric. And this will tell you what I'm looking for if I'm handing out over 80% for work, or what I'm looking for if I'm handing out over between 70 and 80%. Or on the other hand, what I'm penalizing people for if you're getting between 40 and 50% or less than 40%. So what do I want? What do I really expect if you're going to give me a pass style answer? And what not to do. And the main thing not to do is cheat, plagiarize, make use of AI. Okay, so this is the tally file. So when you open this document, just use the up and down and across arrows on your laptop to just go up to explore this sheet. So the first sheet is the tallies sheet, and this gives you tallies for the 5 local election constituencies. So if for question 1, the constituency, the candidate you're being assigned is in Graf St. Patrick's, that's well and good. You can work through this area. If the candidate you've been assigned is in Arts Phoenix, then you need to go down the Excel sheet and find the graph, the Arts Phoenix constituency. So just use the up and down arrows to find the different areas, find the different candidates, and so on. Now, how is this organized? So the first column tells you the polling station, and you'll notice that most areas are broken up into a number of polling stations. So the Loftus area, which is meant to be a small town in a mainly rural area, in this particular environment, is broken up into 5 polling stations. And then the third column is the box number. Don't get too worried about that. That's I'm just trying to replicate kind of a regular tally sheet there. Moving into the next columns, then you get the actual tally figures. So the tally figures, as I explained in class, tells you how many votes different candidates won in different polling boxes within a constituency. So if you look at, say, the very first number there, Brian Bracken, that tells you Brian Bracken won 105 votes in the Loftus, the first polling station in Loftus. He won 120 votes in the second polling box, 111 votes in the third polling box, 114 votes in the fourth polling box, and 101 votes in the fifth polling box in that station. So that tells you, and you'll see the same for Eilish and Cassidy, and work across the sheet, you'll see similar numbers for all the other candidates. Now, this is interesting, particularly if you're looking at the friends and neighbours effect. Now, just to note on the sheet, if you look at, say, Eilish and Cassidy, Evan Hennessy, and Mary Faherty in this particular one, I couldn't show the whole area in this particular slide, but you'll see each candidate will have a cell that's highlighted in green, and that is their home polling box, the polling box that corresponds to their home area. The assignment guidelines will give you their official address details, but the tally figure sheet will highlight the home polling box. So if you're looking for evidence of the friends and neighbours effect, that's what you're looking at particularly, how well they're doing in their home area, how well they're doing in areas in and around their home area, and does their number of votes drop off the further you move away from those home areas. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a calculation, some basic calculations through Excel. Again, this is mainly for students who aren't too confident with working with Excel. So for this example, the first thing I'm going to imagine I'm doing question 1, I'm asked about Wendy Fergus. Is there a friends and neighbours effect for Wendy Fergus? Now you'll see there, as with the previous sheet, we have got cells highlighting green. So the very first thing I'll notice is, oh, Wendy Ferguson's from the Riverstown area and her home polling box. The polling box corresponding to her home area or her home address is polling box 1 in Riverstown. Anyway, I want to calculate percentage figures for Wendy Fergus. It's okay talking about raw numbers, but Wendy Fergus could be getting 55 in one area, but there's only 100 votes in that area. She could be getting 100 votes in another area, but there's 500 votes in that area. So actually, her stronger area would be the area where she's getting 55 votes, where she's winning 55% of the vote, whereas in the other area she might be only getting 20% of the vote. So you want, for good, to be able to compare, to be able to show evidence of friends and neighbours voting, to be able to compare between candidates, between parties, you need to be able to calculate percentage figures. So let's calculate Wendy Fergus's percentage vote in the very first polling box here, the polling box 1 in rhetoric. So I'm highlighting, that's the cell I'm looking at there, the one with 55 votes in it. Now, to do our calculations, here, if you're looking at candidates or parties, I would suggest creating a new column. So in our column here, I'm going to calculate the percentage vote for Fergus. So I just type at the top of the column, Fergus percentage, and I start my calculations. The first thing I type in is equal to, open brackets. Then I go back to my spreadsheet and I click on the cell with Wendy Fergus's votes for that polling station, so that 55. Okay, so I want to calculate a percentage. Now the percentage votes are divided by the total valid votes in that station. So I need to divide, click to find the divide, type in the divide symbol, and then click on the link for total valid votes, which you'll find towards the end of the columns. Okay, I'm nearly finished my calculation now. Once you get to do this, it's quite simple. Once you get used to it, I know it's hard the first time, but once you get used to this, it's quite simple. So to finish my calculation then, I need to calculate a percentage figure. I close the brackets and then type multiply by 100, as so, and press enter. And lo and behold, there's our answer. So that tells us in this polling box, Wendy Fergus is winning 13.9 blah, 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 something percent of the votes. Percentage calculated. Once you've calculated one percentage, you can do it for any other candidate or political parties and so on. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to show you, if you're doing question 2, okay, you're being asked maybe about Fianna Fáil. So I'm going to try and calculate the percentage Fianna Fáil vote for this same polling box. The first thing I'm going to do is actually calculate the total number of votes won by Fianna Fáil in this box, because there's more than one Fianna Fáil candidate in this box. So I create a new column. I'll call this Fianna Fáil. I won't put percentage here because I'm going to do that in the next column. And again, I start off by typing equal to. Now for adding up, there's a function you use for adding up, and that's called the sum function. So I type in equal to sum, open brackets. I then find and highlight the Fianna Fáil candidates' votes in that polling station. So that's Lee, Fury, and Kazalowskis. So I highlight those phenol, the cells for the 3 phenol candidates. If you're doing this for other constituencies, you might find there's only 1 phenol candidate or there's 2 phenol candidates. But anyway, it's the same process. So I highlight the cells, I close the brackets, and boom, press enter, job done. You've got the calculation there done. So it tells me there's 163 votes for Fianna Fáil in this particular polling box. Now, to calculate the percentage, I type equal to, open brackets, I click on the Fianna Fáil vote number, which is the cell just beside it. And again, for percentages, I divide by the total valid votes, close the brackets, and multiply by 100. And click enter to finish the calculations, and that tells me Fianna Fáil candidates, Fianna Fáil in this polling box got 41.47% of the votes. 47% or 41.5% if you want to round things off, which I'd strongly encourage you to do. To calculate voter turnout, just in case you're doing question 3 or the debate question, the formula for calculating turnout is equal to, open brackets, the total votes in that constituency, in that polling box, the total votes in that polling box. So it's the total poll. That includes the total valid votes plus the spoil votes. So, okay, equal to, open brackets, click on total poll. Now, this time you're dividing by the electorate. So, click on divide, put in your divide division, click on electorate, put in your divide, so it's equal to total poll divided by electorate. And again, for our percentage, what do we have to do? We close the brackets and we multiply by 100 and we press enter, and there's our answer. So that tells us the voter turnout in this particular polling box was, I think it's 68.9%. So as you see there, it gets easier to do as you work through it. So calculating percentage figures, it's not that hard. It's just a few fairly simple steps. It's just trying to follow this process, and you can use this process for any candidate in any constituency. So I'm just giving you the example of, say, for Wendy Fergus, Fianna Fáil in this constituency, but you can use a similar process for Sinn Féin and Arts Phoenix, or any of the other candidates in the other constituencies. Now, if you want to copy these numbers, if you want to get the percentage Fergus vote figure for all the polling boxes in a constituency, or the percentage Fianna Fáil figure, or the percentage turnout figure for all the boxes, or the total number of votes won by Fianna Fáil in all the boxes, if you want to do that for every box in a constituency, you don't have to do this individually for every row. You can just copy down the formula. And I'm going to show you a quick way of copying down the formula. It's going to be, hopefully you'll get this by this. What you do is you highlight the cells you want to copy down, and then in the bottom right hand corner, try to pull on the bottom. You see, if you click on the very bottom right hand corner, you might be able to pull that down. So try to pull down that. If you can't do that, there's other ways of copy and pasting. So you can use the copy and paste function, which I'll show you how to use later on. But the quickest way of doing this is highlight the cells and just pull down the bottom right hand of the cell at the very end, the voter turnout cell, and you'll see if you do that, and you see if you pull that down, you get calculations popping up there for all the other cells, or sorry, all the other polling stations in that particular local election constituency, and you can do that right to the very bottom of that constituency. Now, there's other ways you can copy and paste. If you find this hard to do, I'll talk about how to do the copy and paste function through Excel later on. It's just the same, you can do the same thing for that, for text as you do for formulae. So click copy on the formula you want to copy, and then click paste in the rows down below. Or you can do hold down Control and C for copy, and then Control and V for paste. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to calculate the total number of votes won by candidates and parties in a specific area. And then once you've got those figures, you can then, going back to what I showed you in the previous few slides, you can then calculate the percentage votes for candidates, percentage votes for parties, and percentage turnout levels once you've got that done. So I'm going to, in this example, I'm going to go to the very bottom of the sheet, and I'm going to try and calculate the total number of votes cast, total number of votes won by candidates and parties in the student centre area, as well as the total number of valid votes cast, total spoiled votes, and the total electorate. So I'm highlighting the area I'm looking at. It's the student centre area in the Arts Phoenix local election constituency. There's 5 polling boxes in this particular area. So this time round, I'm going to the bottom of the sheet instead of going to the end of the column. So I'm going to the bottom of the sheet, and I type in a few rows below the bottom of the sheet, I type in student centre. Now, just so you can see what you're dealing with as you're working through, I'm just going to copy the headers for the constituency. I'm going to copy the headers for the constituency and paste those just above where I'm going to do my calculations. So I start with the very first, I'm not going to worry about the box number here, so I'm going to start with the first candidate, Ciara Clements of Fine Gael, and I just highlight that entire row, starting off with Ciara Clements, working through the candidates, working through the total valid votes, the spoiled votes, total poll, and the electorate. So I highlight everything I want to, everything in this row, starting with Clements, working all the way across, to electorate at the very end, very last column in that row, or those 2 rows. Once I have highlighted everything I want to copy, I click on the copy icon. You'll see the copy icon there in the top left-hand corner of your Excel sheet. There's a very big paste icon. The copy icon is literally right beside it. It looks like 2 copies. So I copy the text, and then I go to the area I want to paste the text. So try and keep it directly below the same column. So just below the Ciara Clements column, I pick the cell I want to paste this information or this text into, and I click on the paste icon, and you see the paste icon is the big icon there in the top left hand corner. And once I do that, all that text gets pasted. Now I want to do calculations again, so I'm going to add up all the votes won by Ciara Clements in the student centre polling boxes. So as I said, there's 5 polling boxes there. And I'll use the same process as I use for political parties, only this time around I'm calculating for different rows as opposed to different columns. So I start off again. If I'm adding up, it's equal to sum, open brackets, and then I highlight the cells I want to add up. So it's the Ciara Clements votes in the Student Centre 1, Student Centre 2, Student Centre 3, Student Centre 4, and Student Centre 5 polling boxes. I highlight those, close the brackets, So I close the brackets, and once I've that done, then I just press enter, and there's the answer. Now there's a different way you can add up cells, maybe a more long-handed way, where you just go equal to first cell plus second cell plus third cell plus fourth cell plus fifth cell. So that's a different way you can use to add up if you want to, if you're kind of finding it hard to get to grips with highlighting cells and so on. And you'll get a similar answer here with this approach. Once you've done one calculation for one candidate, you can copy that formula across for all the other candidates and also use that to calculate, do a similar calculation for voter turnout, the total valid votes, the number on the register, and so on. So again, it's a similar process to the one I suggested before for calculating formula down. This time you're going to calculate the formula across. So I highlight the cell which has my calculations done already. That's the Keir Clemens cell. And I pull on the bottom left-hand corner. This time I'm going to pull across the page. So I try to catch the bottom corner of that cell, the bottom right-hand corner, and then I just pull across the rest of. So you can see there, I'm starting to pull across there. And as I move through the other candidates, the calculation gets copied for everyone else. So you get the total votes won by Armitage in Student Centre, then the total votes won by Story in Student Centre, and so on. And you do that all the way across to the very end of the sheet. Now, once you've all those calculations done, you can go back to what I was talking about on the previous few slides, and you can then start to work out, well, what's the percentage vote won by, say, Harry Andrews in this area? What's the percentage vote won by the Social Democrats in this area? What's the percentage voter turnout? So again, this is all stuff I talked about in the previous few slides. And you see, yeah, as I'm showing you there, straight away, you can go, okay, now we can calculate things like the Andrews percentage vote here. So again, percentage votes equal to, open brackets, number of votes won by that candidate, divided by total valid votes, close the brackets, multiply by 100, and job done. Okay, a few quick pointers on how to draw graphs. So if you work out how to calculate percentages and you get comfortable with that, that's good, because you'll be able to use those percentage figures to illustrate your ideas in the answers for the assignment, irrespective of whether you're doing question 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now, if you get comfortable with calculating percentages and you want to do a little bit more, you can, for some of your, if you want to do a little bit more, you have the option of drawing up graphs. So I'm going to show you how to draw graphs here quickly. And this is a very bog standard. I'm not going to tell you how to do perfect graphs. So I'm going to tell you how to do basic graphs. So I would say, if you want to draw a graph, get the data you want to put into your graph into a separate Excel sheet. That's probably the best thing to do. So here I'm going to say, here's the percentage votes won by different parties in a specific area, and I want to put that into a graph. So I put all my information into a new Excel sheet. So the first column has the parties, second column has their percentage vote share in that area. Now, before I start to work on my graph, I have to highlight that data. And then I look for the insert option at the top of the Excel sheet. So I click on insert, and one of the options that opens up once I click on insert is a number of chart options. So there's recommended charts as an option, and then there's options for individual charts or graphs just beside that in the next kind of 3 columns there. So for this one, I'm going to I'm selecting the insert, the recommended charts option. and that gives a number of options, some of which are more suitable than others. For this particular option here, any of the first three options here would be, any of the first 3 or 4 options here would be fine, because they will get across the information. If you're showing party votes and all the votes won in that area, and you've got all the votes won by every party in that area in your information, you can actually use a pie chart for this if you want to. You can also use a bar chart as well, or a column chart if you prefer instead. Sometimes the bar charts or the column charts, they're the safe options, but if you've got a case that all the numbers add up to 100, in this case you can actually use a pie chart. So for this option here, I'm going to do a basic simple pie chart. So I just simply insert chart, click on the recommended charts, and then click on the pie chart option there. And boom, there's your pie chart done for you straight away. It's not the, once you get used to Excel, trust me, it's not that hard to do. Now, if you get a bit more confident, you can try to hype up this graph or make this graph a bit prettier. So you could maybe change the chart title. You have the option of changing the chart title. You have the option of changing the font size, etc. But if you at least do that and you can't do anything else, if you get to the 21st of November and this is the best you can do, then that's not bad. That's not bad. If you can do a graph and you've already worked out how to calculate percentages, that's pretty good in fairness. Now I'm going to show you how to do another graph. This graph this time is a graph of voter turnout in different areas. Now these aren't the real turnout figures, so don't cheat and say, oh, the voter turnout for the graph is 72.3. It's not. I'm just using these as making up figures. So don't use this how-to guide to calculate your turnout figure for you. You'll have to do that yourself. So again, this time round, I'm going to do voter turnout. I'm going to compare between different areas, voter turnout levels between different areas. Now, in this case, a pie chart will not work because all the numbers don't add up to 100. So we're going to forget about pie charts here. We're going to use either a bar chart or a column graph. So again, highlight the data you want to graph, including the names of the places as well as the actual numbers. If you just highlight the numbers, you just get a graph showing numbers, but there's no context to it. So highlight all the data, the name of the place and the number, or in the previous example, the political party and the number. Click on insert and then go click on the graphs option. So in the previous example, I went straight for recommended graphs. This time around, I'm going to pull out the column or pie or bar chart option, and you'll find individual options for graphs in the next 2 columns next 2 or 3 columns after the recommended charts icon. So I've clicked on the insert column or bar chart option in this case, because I definitely don't want to pie. I know what I want. I want a column graph, and I definitely don't want a pie chart. So I click on this, and there's a number of different options for bar charts and column charts. If you're going to try and do something really pretty, you might go with a 3D option. In my case, I'm going to KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I'm just going to go for a basic 2D column chart or column graph, which is the very first one in the top left-hand corner. I just click on that icon and boom, job done, there's your graph. And again, you can pretty that up. You could, if you get a bit more confident with Excel, with doing graphs in Excel, you could change the color for different areas, change the color of the bars in your column chart. You can change the chart title. You can change the font type and so on. But yeah, if you get to this level at least, if you've gone to all the bother of calculating percentage figures, and you then are able to do a graph of those percentage figures, even if it's basic like this is very basic. Like, that's pretty good in my books. So yeah, this was a very quick, well, it's over half an hour, but it's a quick how-to guide for those of you who aren't comfortable with Excel on how you can work through this. So as I said, for the assignment, I'm expecting some level of work being done with the data, especially the data in the tally sheets. But what I've covered with you in this slideshow, this is the work I'm expecting. I'm not expecting high-powered statistics. If some of you, and maybe one or two of you might be able to, maybe one or two of the overseas students or one or two of the other students might be, if some of you are comfortable with doing regressions, or sorry, more so correlations as opposed to regressions. If you've never heard of these terms, totally ignore this. Then once you calculate percentage figures, you could be able to do correlations between, say, phenol support, percentage phenol support, and percentage turnout. But anyway, what I'm really expecting of the class is what I've covered with you today, to be able to calculate percentage figures and draw graphs. Now, how many graphs should you draw? I would say at most 1 or 2 per question. If you think a graph helps you to explain a point in the question, then use a graph. Don't go down the line of throwing in 10 graphs, because that's too much. So at most, I'd say if you want to use graphs, please do, because you will earn extra marks if you can effectively make use of graphs. But you don't need to have too many graphs. 1 or 2 graphs per answer, if they are appropriate. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful. If there's any more questions, as I said in the emails, you can call me by simply arranging an online check-in at some stage. So hopefully you found this. This was hard to do now personally myself. I did this with one hand and it was hard to work through. I could have done this with you in 10, 15 minutes in class, but it took me about 3 hours to put this together. So please make use of this. So at least try to calculate percentages, at least try to draw graphs. That's all I'm asking. Now you're asking for high-powered analyses. And if you follow the instructions in this guide, hopefully this will help you to do so. I've tried to keep things as simple as possible.